Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith, and today I'm talking about The Exorcist Legacy 50 Years of Fear by Nat Segaloff, with a foreword by John Russo. This is a nonfiction book that is all about The Exorcist and the sequels and prequels and TV show, and was written uh, just before the production of the latest Exorcist movie, The Exorcist Believer. So it does have a little bit about that, but there wasn't a lot of plot detail or anything about it, so just touches on that. For the too long didn't watch folks, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's not the best making of kind of book that I've read, so I couldn't give it 5 stars, but 4 could even be a 4.5 because it's really interesting. And look at that great green color, and I love the green there on the cover. It's just a fantastic cover. Excuse me. So basically, the author has interviewed a bunch of people and dug deep. He is a movie publicist and film critic, TV producer, college teacher, reporter, and broadcaster. So, and the book, he starts off talking about little biography of William Peter Blatty, author of The Exorcist, and William Friedkin, director of The Exorcist. So we get some biographical information about them, where they're coming from. And then we have a chapter on the case that may or may not have been the inspiration for William Peter Blatty to write the novel The Exorcist. Mostly seems that it is the case that inspired him. But there may be some questions about that. And then it gets into the book and then the movie and the production and all that behind the scenes stuff that's really interesting. Gets into the whether or not the movie was cursed, and then the reception of the movie and all that sort of thing, before it moves on to The Exorcist 2, The Heretic, and then Exorcist 3 or Legion, The Exorcist 3, however that title actually goes. And then the fact that there are 2 prequels, which is a crazy story, and then gets into the TV series, which I've never seen. And then goes a little bit beyond that. And it's a well-written, very interesting book if you like The Exorcist, which I'm actually a sort of a Johnny-come-lately to this. Well aware of basically the entire movie, but never watched it from start to finish until just a few years ago. I believe it was when I interviewed F. Paul Wilson for my series, My Favorite Horror With. I believe it was F. Paul Wilson that chose The Exorcist. And so that's the first time, was that just last year? First time I sat down and watched the movie from beginning to end. I believe I watched the extended or director's cut. This book gets into all that too. And then I promised him that I would read. I'd never read the book. I promised him I would read it by the end of the year. So I believe it was just last year is when I read The Exorcist for the first time. I really want to read Legion now. Yeah, I forget where I was going with that. But it's, yeah, if you're a fan of The Exorcist, I think you're going to dig this book. And oh yeah, so it's very well written. And the author talks about in his introduction, he was working at a theater when the movie premiered, and because of the newspaper schedule in Boston, I believe it is, they weren't going to, the reviewers, the critics, the film critics, weren't going to get a chance to see the movie before it came out, so they had a special screening the day before its release, which it came out the day after Christmas, so these critics had to go to a special secret screening on Christmas, and the author was basically had to guard the door, Nobody but the critics on the list could get in to see it. So he's got that, sort of personal experience. I do like in books like this where you'll have one person sort of tell an anecdote, and then another person who says, well, that's not really the way it happened. It was this place, not that place, and they said this. It was this person that said it, not that person. That kind of thing. There's a little bit of that in here. Now there are a few typos throughout the book, and the reason I bring this up because there is one typo in particular that completely changes the sentence that this typo is in. It's the first word of the sentence, and I'm 99.999 with a line over it % sure that it's supposed to say none of, but it says one of. One of in the context. I don't want to give away what it is. You can ask me, and I'll post a spoiler warning and talk about it in the comments. But in the context of it, one of, etc., doesn't make sense, but none of does. And I just thought it was very funny. Not dinging the book at all for this. It was just something that amused me, because that one word, whether it's none or one, changes the meaning of the sentence that follows that word. As it obviously would. None and one. It's two different things. So, yeah, I love reading about movies and how they're made. Anybody who's a regular viewer should know by now. I'm all about behind the scenes stuff. That's why I still buy physical media. I want all those special features. I love places like, or distributors, whatever you want to call them, like Scream Factory and Arrow and all of these, Vinegar Syndrome, all these places that are putting out movies with tons of special features. And because I want that, I want to see the interviews, I want to hear the commentaries, and so reading books like this is something that I absolutely love, as long as they're well written, and it's movies that I enjoy. I really dig it, and so this is a really good example of that sort of thing. So The Exorcist Legacy, 50 Years of Fear. If you're a fan of The Exorcist, I highly recommend it. I gave it 4 out of 5 on Goodreads, but it's probably closer to 4.5. I think it gets a little credit for that cover alone. So yeah, check it out. Some really, really interesting anecdotes. Oh, and is it a spoiler if I tell you what one of the chapters is? Apparently, William Friedkin made a documentary about the Pope's exorcist. Who I don't believe I'd ever heard of him until the movie with Russell Crowe came out, which is supposed to be based on a true story, but it is based on a real guy, and William Friedkin got to meet him, talk to him, make a documentary about him. It's available on Crackle for free. Some other places you have to pay for it to see it. I believe it's called The Devil and Father Amorth. Amorth. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. But I'm interested in seeing that. So that was kind of cool, reading about that. I had no idea. Oh, one complaint about the book, and this isn't about the writing or anything, but the formatting, essentially. And I don't understand why people use endnotes instead of footnotes. And if it were just citation, endnotes are fine. I don't need to know immediately where this quote came from or whatever. But when you have extra information in those notes, make it a footnote. So I don't want to be flipping back and forth. Okay, there's another, a number one, little number one, not asterisks and stuff. They're numbered, There's a little number one. Let me flip to the back of the book and see what else they have to say about this particular thing. And maybe it's not extra information, it's just a citation. But sometimes it is extra information. Make them footnotes so I can just glance down and read it at the bottom of the page. I ended up using 2 bookmarks, the one to mark my page when I stopped reading, and one in the back where the end notes were. And at first, I would, here's the little number. Let me flip to the back and read what it has to say. All right, let me flip back to where I was, but with not that much flipping because I had a bookmark. But then I did it at the end of each chapter. I'd finish the chapter, then I'd go to the end notes, read the little extra bits of information. Again, just a formatting thing. I don't know why certain publishers or authors, I don't know whose decision it is, don't know why they do it that way. Personally, I would much rather have footnotes than the end notes, but that's me. Anyway, that's my little rant. The Exorcist Legacy, 4.5 out of 5 stars. Check it out. Question for the video: are you a fan of The Exorcist? I am now. Again, came late to the party, even though I knew, basically could have told you the movie backwards and forwards without ever having seen it. I'd heard enough, seen enough clips, heard people talk about it, all of that. But it wasn't until, I'm saying, last year that I watched it from start to finish and then read the book. And someone else, actually previous to F. Paul Wilson, had chosen The Exorcist 3, Legion, The Exorcist 3, for their episode of My Favorite Horror With. So I'd actually seen that from start to finish before I'd ever seen the original. That's a fantastic movie. I've never bothered with The Exorcist 2 because I hear it's terrible. And I've not seen the prequels. I've not seen the TV series. I did see Exorcist Believer in theaters because my niece's father wanted to go and see it, so I went with him to see it. And I've said this before. I think I made a video about it. I think if it weren't part of the Exorcist universe, if it was its own exorcism movie, I think it would have had better reception. I didn't think it was a terrible movie. I do think that it's Ellen Burstyn, right? Right? Ay, caramba, I can't believe I just read this book. Let's find the... There's Blair, Linda. Looking in the... Yes, Ellen Burstyn. There we go. Her part was completely unnecessary. You know, it's supposed to be a legacy sequel. But they could have taken her out. Chris McNeil could have taken her out of the movie completely, and it would not have changed the story in any way, any significant way anyway. So I don't think it's a horrible movie. I think it was a bad idea, story-wise, to make it part of The Exorcist. But of course, whatever studio paid $400 million for The Exorcist, the franchise. But good news, hopefully, Mike Flanagan directing the next one, because they're supposed to be making 3, so maybe he can right the ship. But yeah, loved the original movie, loved Legion, didn't absolutely hate The Exorcist Believer. TV show sounds like it could have been interesting. Maybe if it's on streaming, I'll check it out. But I don't know about watching either of the prequels, or I may watch Exorcist 2, The Heretic, just out of morbid curiosity. Love the book. Want to read the sequel, Legion. But what about you? Let me know about your Exorcist thoughts, your Exorcist experiences. Did it freak you out the first time you saw it? I know a lot of people that seem to have seen it when they were really young. Like, a lot of people will say, yeah, I saw it when I was way too young to have seen it. Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. If you care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. And on Blue Sky, I am at EL Smith. That's all I have for you. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith. And until next time, read more books.